As I was thinking about what to talk about tonight, because we've been doing the Brahma Viharas. We did the Brahma Viharas there for a few weeks. And sometimes what happens to me is, I suspect it happens to everybody, there's like this sort of a lack of interest in the practice sometimes. Or I know I want to practice, but I'm not really motivated to, and I know I benefit from the results, but there's so many other things to do. And so one of the things that happened to me the other day on Friday morning, I woke up and I had a different kind of back pain than I usually have. I'm sure all of us have various kinds of chronic pains that arise. I had a different kind of back pain than I ordinarily have, and I thought I could work through it when I went to this gyrokinesis class that I take and exercise my spine. And it got worse over time, and it lasted another day, and then it lasted another day, and then it became this morning, or maybe that's only the second day. And that I haven't had that kind of really intense pain in an area and then have it spread out from my back around to the side and down around my belly. And on the one hand, I'm doing the thing that we all do, like okay, let's see, kidneys, pancreas, liver, diverticulitis. I wonder if I should go to a doctor. Maybe I'll call them, or I should wait till Monday, and all the stuff that goes on, in the mind. And what I noticed, I did the things that I knew it would be useful to do. I got out my little massager. I got out heat. I propped myself up on my side, and I ran the massager on my side, and I worked on my belly. And I said, look, this is probably just really intense gas happening, and it's taken a while to move, who knows, but do these things, and turning the mind towards the Dhamma and away from the habitual pattern that takes us off into fear and anxiety and worry. And this was talked about by the Buddha. Really, there's a lot to take in the we could try to talk about greed, hatred, and delusion, but really, these remembrances, these recollections, are a way to gladden the mind and to incline the mind toward the Dhamma, especially when we're feeling lazy, or there's something that I'm in pain and my mind is going off somewhere. And in various forms of Buddhism, they changed around a little. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's called the four thoughts that turn the mind toward the Dhamma. And in other forms of Buddhism, it's called the five recollections. And so you've heard them before, I'm sure. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape from having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. And so when we're in the middle of something challenging, we can, like me with that pain that lasted for too long, and my aversion to it, and my mind going off in a lot of directions, it's like, there it is, right in front of our faces. I am of the nature to grow old. And I'm of the nature to have ill health. And I am of the nature to die. And things change around me. People who are dear, it'll change. And that it's our actions and our consequences of our actions that is the ground that we stand on. And I really tried to steer my action away from fearful and, creating some storyline, who knows where it's going to go. Just do the best you can, to letting the mind dwell on these 5 recollections, it's just that they were first found in one of the suttas that's entitled Subjects for Contemplation, Upajjhatthana. And I looked it up, and I thought I might read some stanzas from it. We'll see how I do. But I just kind of wanted to bring it up because these are intended to be memorized. And they're things that we can say every day. Maybe they're the first thing that we say when we wake up, or the first thought that I have before I go to bed, or the last thought. I have it in a frame somewhere where I can just read it every day. I used to have it taped on the mirror, and then I had it on the refrigerator till I got a refrigerator that isn't magnetized on the front. There's too much stuff on the side. And, as they become internalized, they become a kind of touchstone that we have this anchor. And, we know that it's a constant reminder that there's no way around aging, and there's no way around sickness, there's no way around death. And so the first 3 are basically, if you think about it, they're what drove the Buddha to become the Buddha. They were the central wake-up calls of his life before he woke up. He saw a sick person, an old person, and a dead person, and he didn't know what they were. And, then he started, okay, if this is happening, is this going to happen to me? He asked his charioteer. Yes, it'll happen to you. Well, that got him going. And so by not looking away, but by really realizing what we're seeing, so that we have sickness and old age and death, and then we have the last 2, all that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. Well, this is impermanence, and this is what we see in our practice when we're paying attention to the breath. We can see the impermanence of the breath arising and passing away. We can see impermanence all around us whenever we look, and it's pretty hard not to look. And so, we know that all that is dear to us and everyone that we love, they are of the nature to change. And there's no way to escape being separated from them. And so that's, a little bit of spice of dukkha, or unsatisfactoriness, that everything's going to change. Nothing is ever going to be as we want it to be, or as I think I need it to be, or how it should be. And I can't keep the perfect thing, that I want. I really can't keep anything. And so, we say those phrases in first person, but we can also say them in second person. Maybe not out loud, but as, if your parents are still alive and you're looking at your aging parents, or as your children are growing up, or your friend who's suffering from a debilitating disease, or, all the joys and sorrows that your grandchildren are going through, or the difficulties of growing up, we can pause and think to ourselves, you are of the nature to grow old. You are of the nature to die, and you're going to suffer separation and loss. And, we shouldn't pretend that it's otherwise. We can also say we, because we are all of this. We're all going to lose what we have, if we ever had it. And this is nature. We're all of this nature. I think sometimes some of my most grounded and simple moments in relationship to this practice has taken place in settings like a public setting, where there's, it's crowded, people are around, and sort of looking at faces more than I can process looking at the faces. And I think, oh, we're all this, all of us. And then I tend to go from the 5 recollections to loving kindness, to, wishing them to be free from their suffering and have ease and well-being. And then that 5th remembrance is probably the most interesting in a way. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. So this is about karma. And I've heard it said, and maybe you have too, this phrase that we own our actions, but not the fruit of our actions. So we experience the consequences, but we don't get to have the rewards, so to speak. And it's different in different traditions. But, we're in our life and expressing it 100% right now. And, this is what my life looks like right now. There's not a backstory. There isn't something I don't see. What's happening is, at that moment that I was beginning to reflect on these this morning, it was, okay, this is the pain that's happening in the body. I don't need to identify with the pain. It's pretty painful, but I don't need to grasp onto it as me and mine. It's going to change. So what I chose in that moment mattered, because there's consequences in the mind stream. And, we can choose the actions that we can take. But we don't know necessarily what the consequences will be. So we just try to have the right action, let the mind be present with what's really happening, and see the reality of these 5 remembrances. And they're very powerful, these recollections. They're more than enough to create freedom in the heart and mind, and to to help us let go of suffering. And just the reminder of the heavenly messengers, those divine heavenly messengers that arrived to the Buddha, showing him birth and death and old age, and helping him understand karma. It's really a blessing to have those teachings and to know it. I think I'll take a minute if I can find where I put this in my notes, because I made 2 different things happen. Well, this is one of the quotes, but I'd like to find the whole sutta. But these are two different versions of a section out of the sutta, one from Bhikkhu Bodhi and one from Bhikkhu Sujato. Subject to birth, this is what was in quotes as what the Buddha realized. Subject to birth, subject to aging, subject to death, run-of-the-mill people, this is Sujato's translation, run-of-the-mill people are repelled by those who suffer from that to which they are subject. And if I were to be repelled by being subject to these things, it would not be fitting for me living as they do. As I maintain this attitude, knowing the Dhamma, without paraphernalia, basically he's a monk, without paraphernalia, I overcame all intoxication with health, youth, and life, as one who sees renunciation as rest. For me, energy arose. Unbounding was clearly seen. There's now no way I could partake of sensual pleasures. Having followed the holy life, I will return. This is the more common one. Worldlings is the other translation of run-of-the-mill people. Worldlings, subject to impermanence, old age, and death, are disgusted by other people who exist in accordance with their nature. If I were to become disgusted with beings who have such a nature, that would not be proper for me, since I too have the same nature. While I was dwelling thus, having known the state without acquisitions, I overcame all intoxications, intoxication with health, with youth, with life, having seen security in renunciation. Zeal then arose in me, as I clearly saw Nibbana. Now I am incapable of indulging in sensual pleasures, relying on the spiritual life. Never will I turn back. So that's pretty hardcore. But it's, we, as somebody said in one of the workshops that I did with Aya Santusika on this sutta, she said, waking up to this, it's like, it's hard to believe that I would choose anything else, that it's so transforming, and it's so, I don't know, like chilling. It's such a chilling reality. So I think I'll read one segment out of some of the sutta. I chose the easier one to understand. And then I'll let us have some conversation. This is out of one of the easier suttas, the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of Fives. So since there's 5 things, everything in that sutta has 5s. So this is called themes. Bhikkhus, there are these 5 themes that should often be reflected upon. Now, I think in the Buddha's time, he would have not had gender specific binary descriptions. But in the translation, it is. So, bhikkhus, there are these 5 themes that should often be reflected upon by a woman or a man, by a householder or one gone forth. What 5? A person, a householder or one gone forth, should often reflect thus: I am subject to old age. I am not exempt from old age. Number 2, a person, a householder or one gone forth, should often reflect thus: I am subject to illness. I am not exempt from illness. Number 3, a person, a householder, or one gone forth, should often reflect thus: I am subject to death. I am not exempt from death. Number 4, a woman or man, a householder, or one gone forth, should often reflect thus: I must be parted and separated from everyone and everything dear and agreeable to me. Number 5. A woman or a man, a householder or one gone forth, should often reflect thus. I am the owner of my karma, the heir of my karma. I have karma as my origin, karma as my relative, karma as my resort. I will be the heir of whatever karma, good or bad, that I do. For the sake of what benefit should a person, a householder, or one gone forth often reflect thus? I am subject to old age. I am not exempt from old age. So this section is, for the sake of what benefit? And for the sake of what benefit should the person, the householder, or one gone forth? I am subject to illness. I'm not exempt from illness. And then it goes on to all of the other 5 points, for the sake of the benefit. So, the benefit. The noble disciple reflects thus. I am not the only one who is subject to old age, not exempt from old age. All beings that come and go, that pass away and undergo rebirth, are subject to old age. None are exempt from old age. And as they often reflect on this theme, the path is generated. One pursues this path, develops it, and excuse me. Let's see, where was I? He pursues this path, develops it, and cultivates it. And as they do so, the fetters are entirely abandoned and underlying tendencies are uprooted. Once again, the noble disciple reflects, I am not the only one subject to illness, exempt from illness. All beings that come and go, pass away, undergo rebirth. Often reflecting on this theme, the path is generated. I'm not the only one subject to death. And the noble disciple reflects, I am not the only one who must be parted or separated from everyone. The noble disciple reflects, I am not the only one who is the owner of one's karma, the heir of one's karma, who has karma as one's origin, who will be heir of whatever karma, good or bad, that one does. All beings that come and go, pass away. They're owners of their own karma, heirs of their karma, have karma as their origin. And then it gives the quote of the one that I said about zeal. So just having these reflections, as a reminder, when we think that our path isn't so interesting, or we don't really want to sit, or we don't really want to walk, or whatever, reflecting on any one of these can really allow us to feel that compassion for others and understand the fact that we are all subject to this, as long as we are coming again, into this life, and to do our best to be aware of what happens to each of us. And if we have the time, and I think I can find it, I did a workshop with ISN Tusika. I don't know when this was. I'd have to look back at the date. It was a while back, last year sometime. And it was one on the selfless nature, one's selfless nature. And she has a little wrap-up at the end of going over the 5 recollections. And her enthusiasm is so sweet. She has a wrap-up that kind of helps us understand, what is the point of doing this, and why would I want to do a practice that seems to be so depressing? but it's that opening to the suffering of all beings. So that's probably enough for me talking right now, and I'll let us talk to each other about this, and I will look eventually in my notes to see if I can find the reflection that she had on the Recollections. So let me make my mic work again.